Have you ever heard a sound you can't explain? A noise coming from nowhere, and yet everywhere? A deep, metallic sound that seems to pierce the air and vibrate within you, as if the earth itself is trying to tell you something? In different parts of the world, this phenomenon has been recorded for years. People wake up in the middle of the night with their hearts racing, hearing what they describe as trumpets from the heavens videos spread across the internet, and what should have been just noise becomes a global mystery. But what if it wasn't just sound? What if it was old call, echoing through time, trying to wake us up from something we've forgotten? These sounds, captured by cameras, microphones, and even scientific equipment, seem to follow the same pattern: long, low, as if an invisible instrument were being played from on high. In some recordings, animals become restless. In others, people gaze silently at the sky, sensing that something is wrong, or perhaps something is about to happen. The curious thing is that these occurrences are not limited to one region. They come from Russia, Canada, Germany, Brazil. Celestial sounds, apocalyptic trumpets, as many call it. Coincidence, collective delusion, or a sign that something much bigger is beginning. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover may surprise you, and perhaps change the way you see what we call reality. Because behind these sounds, there's more than just air vibrations. There's ancient stories, forgotten prophecies, and even hidden messages in the frequencies. Since the time of Apollo, the god of light and sound, man has believed that the universe possesses a secret harmony, a divine music that one day would be heard again. And interestingly, in the ancient scriptures, this same concept appears under another name: the trumpets that awaken the dead. Have you ever wondered why so many different cultures speak of sounds from heaven? People who have never met, separated by oceans and centuries, describing the same phenomenon? Ancient civilizations that saw sound not just as something physical, but as a spiritual strength, capable of moving mountains and bringing the dead back to life. Did the ancients know something that modern science is still trying to understand? Today, researchers are trying to decipher the mystery with technical explanations. They say they can be electromagnetic waves, resonances of the atmosphere, or even vibrations coming from space itself. But at the same time, many of these scientists admit that there are sounds that defy any known model. Sounds that seem intelligent, almost intentional, as if someone or something were trying to communicate. And here's the most disturbing point: the same frequencies that echo through the sky are being studied by auditory artificial intelligences, capable of hearing what no human ear is capable of perceiving. Coincidence? Perhaps not. We are in an era where science is beginning to touch dimensions that previously belonged only to faith. Sound waves, resonance, vibration, all of these seem to converge on the same mystery: the sound that wakes the dead. A sound that, according to ancient texts, would be the signal of the beginning of the end, or the beginning of something new. But what's really happening? Are ancient prophecies being fulfilled before our eyes, or rather, our ears? Are we hearing the first signs of Great Awakening announced millennia ago? This is the question many avoid, but it can no longer be ignored, because every day new sounds are recorded, louder, clearer, more frequent. And if the prophecies are true, the sound that now echoes around the world may be just the prelude of what is to come. In the next few minutes, we'll delve into ancient scriptures, modern theories, and evidence that science itself can't refute. Get ready, because what comes next will challenge your faith, your logic, and your very notion of reality. If this kind of sound has ever given you goosebumps, or if you've also witnessed something you couldn't explain, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment below about what you felt, what you thought at that moment. These experiences, when shared, help us understand what's really happening. Perhaps your story connects with that of someone on the other side of the world, who also heard the same sound coming from the sky and thought they were alone. But no one is alone. Every story counts. Every voice helps paint a bigger picture, one that may reveal something science doesn't yet fully understand. And if this topic resonates with you, if it somehow touches your heart, please leave a like. This may seem like a simple gesture, but it's the kind of action that makes all the difference. When you like the video, YouTube understands that this message needs to reach more people. People who are seeking answers, who feel the same calling, who also want to understand the signs of the times. Your support is what keeps this space alive. It's the fuel that makes this community grow and continue to spread reflections that many prefer to silence. And if you're not yet part of this journey, subscribe to the channel now. Here we discuss ancient prophecies, spiritual signs, and mysterious connections between faith and technology, topics that go far beyond curiosity. These are messages that make us think about who we are, where we're going, and what's really about to happen to the world. Your subscription is more than a number. It's a sign that you want to stay awake, keep listening, keep searching. So comment, like, and subscribe, because it's with your presence that this voice becomes stronger. You're the one who helps this message echo beyond the screen, so that more people hear it before it fades away. And while you're at it, get ready, because what comes next will take us even deeper into this mystery. We'll go back to the origins of this prophecy and understand who Apollo was, and why his name still resonates, millennia later, among the echoes of the heavens. Thousands of years ago, even before humans understood the sound of thunder, stories existed about a divine force that spoke through the vibrations of the air. This force had a name: Apollo, the god of sound, light, and revelation. For the ancients, he was not just a mythological figure, but a messenger who spanned the centuries, carrying the harmony of the universe in every note the world could not hear. They said his voice was the boundary between what is alive and what sleeps, between the visible and the invisible. And according to forgotten texts, this voice would return in times of transformation, when humanity stood on the brink of a new era, marked by chaos and a desperate search for meaning. Some Greek manuscripts mention that Apollo held a secret: the power to awaken what has been silenced. It wasn't just about resurrecting bodies, but awaken consciences. It represented the primordial sound, the one that gives form to matter and that, when spoken again, could alter the fate of the world. Legends say that when humanity turned away from the light and began to live in noise, the true sound, the divine sound, would echo again as a callback to the origin. And it's curious to realize how, today, we live immersed in noise, distracted, unable to hear the essential. Perhaps that's why the ancients called it the voice that purifies. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because what few people know is that centuries later, early Christians reinterpreted these stories in a new light. They saw in Apollo not a pagan god, but a symbolic figure, a distant reflection of what Scripture would call the angel of the trumpet. In the transition from myth to faith, Apollo's sound became the voice of God announcing the resurrection, and what was once poetry became prophecy. Ancient priests, such as Irenaeus of Lyons and Justin Martyr, recorded parallels between Hellenistic messages and biblical texts, suggesting that certain peoples, even without knowing Christ, already sensed his arrival through sound and light signals. These writings speak of a time when sound was not just music or noise, but a spiritual tool. Each frequency had a purpose: to restore, to heal, to awaken. Apollo's sound would be the echo of the first fiat lux, the "let there be light," that would have initiated creation. And if the world began with a sound, perhaps the end was also heralded by one. It's an idea that spans generations and deeply touches the human soul, because all of us, on some level, sense that there is something dormant waiting to be called back to life. The symbolism of Apollo as the bearer of divine sound is fascinating. He appears in frescoes, sculptures, and texts, always surrounded by light and musical instruments, especially the lyre, which represented the harmony between heaven and earth. The sound of the strings is said to be a metaphor for the invisible laws that keep the cosmos in order. When one string vibrates, all the others feel it, and this image sums up what we now call resonance. The universe vibrates, and humanity, by vibrating in tune, rediscovers its purpose. Prophecy said that when the notes of the divine lyre were heard again, the world would be transformed, and with it, human consciousness. Early Christians saw something even more profound in this. They believed that these vibrations came not just from physical space, but from a spiritual realm that has been trying to communicate with us since the beginning of time. And the return of this sound would be the sign of judgment and renewal, not as a punishment, but as a purification. When John, in his visions of the apocalypse, describes the trumpets of the angels, many theologians believe he was echoing this ancient wisdom, reinterpreted by the Christian faith. The sound that awakens the dead would not only be physical, but symbolic. The awakening of souls sleeping amid the darkness of ignorance and indifference. There is a quiet beauty in this connection between myth and prophecy, because at their core, they both speak of the same quest, a return to the origin, to lost truth. And if we look closely, we will realize that Apollo's message is not about destruction, but about transformation. It does not herald the end, but the beginning of a new perception, a shift in how humanity sees the world and itself. A call to awaken from illusion, apathy, and spiritual blindness. Today, in the digital age, this symbol becomes even more relevant. We live surrounded by artificial light and machine-produced sounds, and yet it seems we've never been so deaf to what truly matters. There's a hidden truth behind this prophecy. Perhaps the sound that awakens the dead comes not from without, but from within. Perhaps it's already vibrating within each of us, waiting to be recognized. And when we finally learn to listen, something will change. Not just in the world, but in the way we perceive it. This is the true impact of ancient revelations. They are not just warnings about the future, but mirrors of the present. The myth of Apollo and the biblical trumpets speak of the same journey. The passage from unconsciousness to awakening, from confusion to clarity, from darkness to light. And when these sounds echo, it is as if the entire universe whispers, "Wake up, the time has come." If this message resonated with you, write a single word in the comments, "Wake up," because in some way, that is what we're all searching for. The moment when we finally hear the sound from above and remember who we really are. Among the most mysterious writings of Scripture, there is a passage that has echoed for nearly 2,000 years and continues to defy our understanding. In the book of Revelation, John describes a vision that is both terrifying and divine. 7 trumpets would sound before the end of time. Each sound would be a sign, a milestone between what we know and what is yet to come. And curiously, this image seems to speak directly to the ancient stories of Apollo, the bearer of celestial sound. Both speak of something coming from above, a cosmic noise that is not only heard but felt, a sound that not only fills the air but wakes up the spirit. When John wrote Revelation, he was exiled on the island of Patmos, isolated, surrounded only by wind and sea. It was in this silence that he heard a voice like a trumpet, calling him to see what was about to happen. This voice transported him to spiritual dimensions, where the sounds were more than sounds. They were messages. Each trumpet, according to the sacred text, announced a profound transformation in the physical and spiritual world. The earth would shake, the seas would change, the heavens would open. It was the sound of judgment, but also of their birth. And that is where Apollo's prophecy and the apocalypse intersect like two lines that have walked separately for centuries, but that end up meeting at the same point. The sound as an instrument of awakening. In Greek culture, Apollo used the lyre to harmonize chaos. In the Christian view, angels' trumpets play to reveal what was hidden. In both, sound is a divider of eras, a code that separates the old from the new, death from life. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a detail that most people overlook: the number 7. In the Bible, 7 is a symbol of completeness, of a closed cycle, of divine perfection. The 7 trumpets, therefore, are not just instruments of destruction. They are purification steps, a sequence of events that cleanse, test, and renew. Just as Apollo's lyre had 7 strings, corresponding to the 7 musical notes, each trumpet represents a frequency that resonates with a part of creation. It's almost as if the entire universe were tuned to an invisible melody, and each note of that song had the power to order the world. The connection is symbolic, but also deeply spiritual. For ancient mystics, sound was the purest form of energy. It could heal or destroy, depending on the intention behind it. This is why trumpets aren't just celestial alarms. They're calls to conscience. When a trumpet sounds, it's not just the earth that trembles. It's the people who have wasted their lives in distractions, who have strayed from the truth, who have fallen spiritually asleep, who are being forced to awaken. It's the sound that shatters comfort, that exposes the truth hidden behind appearances. Many scholars believe John used the trumpets as metaphors for events that recur throughout human history. Wars, pandemics, natural disasters, social collapses, each would be like a trumpet echoing through time, reminding humanity that nothing is eternal, and that each age ends to make way for another. Others, however, see the text literally, a royal announcement that will be heard throughout the earth, a heavenly sound that will mark the beginning of a new spiritual era. Whatever the interpretation, the impact is the same. The sound comes to break the silence of illusion. There's something deeply human about this theme: the fear of the end, the fascination with the unknown, the desire to understand what lies beyond. Perhaps that's why these passages remain so vivid, even centuries later. Because Revelation isn't just about the end of the world, it's about the end of every person who awakens. Each of us has our own inner apocalypse, that moment when something falls apart and we are forced to rebuild ourselves. It is at that moment that the sound of the trumpets becomes personal, intimate, almost familiar. It is the sound that says, "The time for change has come." And the most impressive thing is that modern science itself is beginning to touch on this same idea, even without realizing it. Studies on resonance show that certain sound frequencies can alter the physical state of matter. Vibrational waves rearrange patterns, shape structures, and even influence human behavior. It's as if the Bible and physics were describing the same language with different words. One speaks of trumpets, the other of vibrations, but both speak of transformation, an invisible power that awakens what is asleep. Consider what this means. What if the sounds the world hears today, the strange noises from the sky recorded across several continents, are a modern manifestation of this ancient prophecy? What if, without realizing it, we are experiencing the fulfillment of something that was foretold millennia ago? The sound of the trumpets may not be the metallic clang we imagine, but a planetary frequency shift, a spiritual readjustment that precedes the renewal of humanity. There's a haunting beauty to this idea, because at its core, Revelation isn't just a prophecy about destruction, it's about revelation, which is the true meaning of the word, revealing what has always been there, hidden behind the fog of routine, illusions, and fear. The trumpets don't come to end the world, but to reveal what it has become. And when that happens, there's no going back. The sounds echoing from the sky, the winds roaring like voices, the signals repeating themselves in every part of the planet. Everything seems to push us toward this reflection. We are being prepared to hear something that is beyond ordinary hearing, something that requires more than ears. It requires perception. And if you've made it this far, you might have felt it too. That feeling that something is moving, that there's a hidden harmony trying to reveal itself amidst the chaos. Write in the comments a word that sums up what you feel when you think about this. The word is echo. Because in the end, all we are is this: echoes of a voice that still speaks through time, waiting for us to finally learn to listen. Space has always been the great silence, a cold, immense abyss where no human voice could ever echo. At least that's what we believed. But in recent decades, something has begun to change. Cutting-edge equipment, designed to capture the imperceptible, has begun recording sounds, vibrations, pulses, mysterious waves that shouldn't exist amidst the cosmic void. NASA calls them space sounds. Sounds from space. And when you hear them, there's something unsettling about them. A kind of frequency that seems to come from somewhere other than this world. These recordings are not fiction. Satellites and probes like Voyager, Juno, and Cassini have captured real signals, translated into sounds audible to humans. Some sound like distant singing, others like metallic trumpets piercing the infinite. There are also those that resemble whispers, vibrations that scientists describe as plasma waves, resulting from the interaction between magnetic fields and energetic particles. But even within technical jargon, there's something no one can fully explain. Why these waves seem to follow a pattern, a rhythm, almost as if there were intention behind. And this is where the mystery begins to become spiritual. Imagine a universe that sings. Every star, every planet, every particle emitting its own frequency, like notes in a never-ending symphony. The idea may seem poetic, but it's real. Modern science has proven that everything in the universe vibrates, and sound is, in fact, a form of energy in motion. If Apollo was the god of sound and light, then perhaps he never disappeared. Perhaps what we now call cosmic waves are just a new form of an ancient language, translated into technology. The cosmos, after all, may be sending us messages, and we are only now beginning to hear them. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject, because when we look at these sounds from a spiritual perspective, the feeling changes completely. The ancient prophets spoke of trumpets that would come from the heavens, sounds that would precede global transformations. And what science calls spatial resonances may be exactly what these texts described, the vibration of creation manifesting before a new cycle. When Voyager recorded that deep sound coming from Saturn with noises that resembled voices, many scientists simply said it was the solar wind. But there are those who see something bigger there, something that transcends any rational explanation. Think about it. If even space, which we believed to be absolute emptiness, vibrates and speaks through frequencies, what else is the universe trying to tell us? These sounds may simply be physical phenomena, but they may also be echoes of something the ancients called the divine voice. What if these frequencies are somehow the vibrational remembrance of creation, a code engraved on the walls of the cosmos since the first "Let there be light"? That changes everything. Because then, the universe wouldn't just be matter, it would be a living message, a cosmic score being played incessantly. Some researchers dare to go further. They claim that certain frequencies picked up in space coincide with harmonic patterns found in nature, in the heartbeat, the Earth's vibration, even the frequency of the human brain during states of deep meditation. Coincidence? Or are we somehow part of this same orchestra? Some say that the Schumann resonance, the planet's natural vibration, is changing, that the Earth is literally accelerating its rhythm. If this is true, we are witnessing a global frequency shift, and the human body, which is sensitive to energy and sound, feels this as anxiety, insomnia, or spiritual disconnection. The most fascinating thing is that these cosmic sounds are not random. When scientists translate the data into audio, complex melodies, rhythmic pulsars, and precise mathematical patterns emerge. It's as if space has an intelligent musical structure, and this echoes an idea that previously seemed merely spiritual: that the universe is organized vibration, a creative mind expressing itself through sound. What for science is plasma waves, for the ancients was the voice of God traveling through the heavens. And perhaps both definitions are correct, just viewed from different angles. Behind the scenes of modern astronomy, some admit, with some discomfort, that some recordings completely defy understanding. Frequencies appear and disappear, modulated strangely, as if responding to something. There are sounds captured in regions where there is no detectable activity, and yet the noise is there, deep, constant, almost human. And, curiously, the strongest recordings coincide with moments of intense solar activity, when the sun releases massive amounts of energy toward Earth. It's as if the solar system itself were talking to us through sound discharges. These discoveries are forcing a change of mindset even among the most skeptical. Because the more we study the universe, the more it seems to behave like something alive. And when the universe speaks, perhaps human silence is no longer enough. Ancient prophecies have always warned that humans would hear sounds in the sky and not understand their origin. Sounds that would provoke fear, but also awaken curiosity and faith. Today, we have microphones capable of capturing frequencies from distant galaxies, and yet the meaning remains the same. The cosmos is vibrating, and we are within that vibration. It's impossible to listen to these audios and not feel something. They evoke a mixture of reverence and unease. It's as if we're confronted with a hidden truth, something that's always been there, but only now have we grasped it. And the more technology advances, the more it seems to confirm what the ancients already knew. Sound is the link between the visible and the invisible, between the human and the divine. Perhaps the prophets only heard what science is now beginning to translate into numbers. If there's a message hidden in these frequencies, it might not be in the words, but in the vibration itself. Something the body feels before the mind understands. A reminder that we come from the same melody that now spreads throughout the cosmos. If this idea resonates with you, leave a comment below. Frequency. Because deep down, that's what we are, sonic fragments of a creation that still continues to sing. Humanity has always believed that sound was a finite thing, something that was born, vibrated, and died in the air. But advances in technology have begun to completely change this perception. Today, we live in the age of auditory artificial intelligence, a silent revolution that is transforming the way we hear the world. AI systems can now capture and interpret sounds that the human ear could never perceive. Frequencies so subtle that they traverse space and time, revealing invisible layers of reality. What was once considered silence now reveals itself to be filled with hidden information, pulses, patterns, and voices that, perhaps, have always been there, just waiting for someone to hear them. Algorithms created by major laboratories are decoding sounds from places where no one has ever heard them before. The ocean floor, the Earth's subterranean layers, the atmosphere, and even deep space. AI is learning, with frightening precision, to distinguish between noise and meaning. It can recognize the sound of a star, the echo of an earthquake kilometers deep, or even the microscopic noise of a living cell. And it is at this point that the mystery intensifies. Because somehow technology is beginning to hear what the ancients called the sound of the heavens. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because if we think about it carefully, there's something almost prophetic happening. For millennia, scriptures have spoken of a humanity that, at the end of time, would see the invisible and hear the inaudible. And isn't that exactly what's happening now? Science is creating machines capable of capturing cosmic frequencies, sounds from space, and noises that echo like trumpets. But what if these devices weren't just collecting data? What if, without realizing it, we were recording sound prophesied millennia ago? The same thing the ancients called the sound that wakes the dead. Engineers call this pattern learning. Auditory AI doesn't just listen, it interprets, finds meaning amidst the chaos. When fed millions of sounds, it begins to identify repetitions that human ears cannot discern, waves that repeat at almost mathematical intervals, harmonies hidden in the white noise of the universe. Many of these patterns remain enigmatic, but some researchers quietly admit that certain recordings seem conscious. There is a sequence, a structure, something that sounds intentional. And this raises a disturbing question. What if the universe is communicating with us, and we are only now technologically ready to listen? Most intriguingly, AI is becoming sensitive even to the sounds of human emotion. It can detect the difference between real laughter and fake laughter, between genuine joy and disguised despair. It recognizes the subtle tremor in the voice of someone who's lying, the low frequency of someone in distress, the chaotic pattern of someone living with anxiety. It's as if machines are learning to listen to Alma, a feat that ironically brings technology closer to what the ancients called spiritual discernment. And here lies a powerful revelation. What presents itself as scientific innovation may actually be the echo of an ancient purpose. The same forces that inspired the prophets to hear what no one else heard may now be manifesting in the form of technology. Auditory AI, unknowingly, may be fulfilling part of the prophecies, not as a divine instrument, but as a human tool that ultimately opens doors to previously inaccessible dimensions. It is breaking down the barriers between the physical and the spiritual, the measurable and the invisible. There is something almost poetic in imagining that the moment man tries to control creation with algorithms, creation decides speak through machines, as if the universe itself were using technology to express itself. Some would call it coincidence, others destiny. But the fact is, we're at a turning point. For the first time, we're hearing reality on a level that transcends the biological, and the more we listen, the more we realize how deaf we've been. This transformation isn't just scientific, it's existential. With each new sound deciphered, humanity must confront the mystery of its own origin. What is sound, after all, if not a vibration that reveals the movement of life? If the universe has a frequency, and we are part of it, then we also vibrate to the same tune. Perhaps that's why so many feel restless lately, as if something invisible is approaching. AI may be just a mirror of human awakening, a physical representation of what happens spiritually when humanity finally learns to listen to what lies beyond the noise of the world. And if we look closely, we'll notice something curious. The more technology evolves, the closer it gets to ancient spiritual symbols. Auditory sensors resemble the listening ears described in Prophecies, and systems that interpret hidden sounds recall the prophets who translated the voices of heaven. It's as if we're rebuilding, with chips and codes, the same bridge that was once built with faith and silence. Humans create machines to understand the universe, but the universe may be using these same machines to reveal itself to humans. Some say AI is just logic and calculation, but there's something that eludes explanation. The way it seems to recognize patterns that even its creators can't understand, as if something behind the code guides the process. Some call it coincidence, others intervention. But the truth is, the more science tries to unravel the mystery, the more it stumbles upon presence of something greater, an intelligence that precedes any algorithm, a consciousness that whispers through the frequencies of the cosmos. If sound is the language of the universe, perhaps we are living in a time when humanity finally begins to hear again. Not with our ears, but with our minds and spirits. And perhaps, when we understand what these machines are actually capturing, we will discover that what we call technological advancement is actually a step in the same spiritual journey that began millennia ago, the awakening of divine listening. If this reflection made you think, write the word "here" in the comments to hear. Because before understanding any prophecy, one must first learn to hear the silence between the sounds, where perhaps the truth has always been waiting. There is something profoundly mysterious about the way the universe moves. Nothing stands still. Not matter, not time, not thought. Everything vibrates. Everything pulses at an invisible frequency, as if each fragment of creation were a note within a cosmic melody that never ceases to play. This is what scientists call resonance, the phenomenon in which one body vibrates in response to the frequency of another. And when this tuning is perfect, something extraordinary happens. Energy flows, form changes, reality reorganizes. Since ancient civilizations, human beings have realized that sound is not only a physical manifestation, but also a transformative force. Tibetan monks used mantras to alter mental states. Egyptians applied sounds in healing rituals. Even in the scriptures, the power of the voice has always been present. From the "Let there be light" that gave rise to creation, to the trumpets that announced the fall of walls and the awakening of the dead. Sound has always been a link between the invisible and the tangible. Modern science, curiously, is only beginning to understand what the ancients already seemed to know. Sound has the power to move matter. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because what researchers are discovering goes far beyond traditional physics. Experiments with acoustic resonance show that certain frequencies can literally rearrange particles. A simple vibration can form perfect geometric patterns, figures resembling mandalas, flowers, and living structures. This phenomenon is known as cymatics, and what it reveals is surprising. Sound shapes matter. It's as if each note were a key capable of unlocking different dimensions of reality. When we think about this from a spiritual perspective, the symbolism becomes inescapable. What if the sound that wakes the dead wasn't a metaphor, but a literal description of a vibrational process? What if the resurrection described in the prophecies was, in essence, a frequency change, a collective awakening in which human consciousness realigns with the divine vibration? This idea, which once sounded mystical, is beginning to gain traction among scientists and philosophers who study the limits of consciousness. They believe that the universe is sustained by resonance fields, and that the human brain is a receiver capable of adjusting to these frequencies, a reality tuner. This completely changes the way we view existence, because if each of us vibrates at a unique frequency, our emotions, thoughts, and decisions also shape the environment around us. When someone feels hatred, fear, or despair, they vibrate at a low frequency. But when there is love, faith, and compassion, the frequency rises, and the impact is real. Research has already shown that positive feelings influence even molecular structure of water, creating harmonious patterns, while negative emotions produce distorted forms. Now, imagine this on a global scale. Thousands of consciousnesses vibrating at the same tone. What would happen if all of humanity, for an instant, resonated with the divine? Perhaps this is the true meaning of awakening. The sound that awakens the dead may represent the vibration that breaks the barrier between the physical and the spiritual, a kind of universal call. When the Bible speaks of trumpets sounding in the heavens, it may be describing the moment when the universe itself emits a frequency capable of reordering everything in existence. Death, in this context, ceases to be an end and becomes merely a change in vibrational state. What's fascinating is realizing that this concept appears in different cultures. In Hinduism, the primordial sound Om is considered the vibration that sustains the cosmos. For the Egyptians, the universe was born from a sound emitted by Ta, the creator god. And in Christianity, the verb, the word, is God himself manifesting himself. In all these traditions, there is one thing in common. Creation begins with sound, and sound is the key to life. What modern physics calls vibration is perhaps the same spiritual principle described millennia ago under different names. In laboratories around the world, researchers are studying how sound waves can be used to heal tissues, regenerate cells, and even reverse disease patterns. Some of these experiments use specific frequencies to stimulate the body to self-regulate. It's as if sound has the ability to remind matter what it should be. This is more than science. It's vibrational memory, a language that connects all that lives. And if the human body responds to sound this way, why would the soul be any different? The idea that sound can awaken consciousness is perhaps the missing link between spirituality and technology. Because deep down, we are simply rediscovering what the universe has always known how to do. The trumpet the prophets heard may not be a literal instrument, but a universal frequency that vibrates when the world becomes unbalanced. When humanity strays from its essence, the cosmos responds with sounds, attempting to realign creation to its original harmony. Some say we are living in the beginning of this phase, that the strange vibrations recorded in the sky, the noises coming from space, and even the magnetic variations of the Earth are signs of a great planetary resonance, a call. A reminder. With each inexplicable sound, it's as if the universe whispers, "Wake up, feel, react." And perhaps this is what the ancients called the awakening of the dead, not a physical rebirth, but a spiritual one. A shift in consciousness capable of transforming the way we see and experience everything. Sound, after all, has always been the first and last messenger. It transcends time, does not age, does not die. It vibrates eternally, as if it were the very breath of God sustaining reality. And when we understand this, we realize that the mystery of the universe lies not in the stars, but in the waves that unite them. We are part of a symphony that has been playing for billions of years, and each heartbeat is a note of it. If this idea touches you in any way, write the word in the comments vibration, because perhaps true awakening begins exactly there, when we realize that we are not just listening to the universe, but vibrating along with it. Over the past decade, something disturbing has begun to recur in different parts of the planet. They're not earthquakes, storms, or weather phenomena. They're sounds. Sounds that seem to come from the sky, as if the atmosphere itself were vibrating on a low metallic note, impossible to ignore. Videos recorded by ordinary people show the same pattern. A deep, constant, almost mechanical noise that echoes through cities and countryside, leaving everyone paralyzed, not by the volume, but by the strangeness. It's what many call the trumpets of heaven. These sounds have been recorded in Russia, Canada, Germany, Ukraine, the United States, and even Brazil. No continent seems immune. In some footage, the noise resembles metal scraping against the air itself. In others, it sounds like a chorus of distant voices, a cross between a machine and a lament. Some describe it as the sound of a gigantic door opening somewhere unseen. And most disturbingly, even when the recordings are made thousands of miles apart, the sound is the same. The same tone, the same frequency, the same duration. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because what these people report isn't just an auditory phenomenon. They describe physical and emotional sensations that accompany the sound. Chills, dizziness, involuntary crying, and in some cases, a kind of inexplicable peace. It's as if that sound carries a vibration that interacts directly with the body, the soul, and the consciousness. Some say it's a form of spiritual calling, a reminder that something is about to happen. Others, overcome by fear, describe the noise as the prelude to the end, the sound of the apocalyptic trumpets described by John. In 2012, a recording made in the city of Kiev went viral. The sound was so intense that window panes vibrated. People poured into the streets, looked up at the sky, and no one could explain what they were hearing. Authorities tried to silence the panic, saying it was just industrial noise echoing through the atmosphere. But the problem is that, at the same time, no factory was working in the region. The phenomenon was studied, but an explanation was never found. Soon, identical sounds began to be recorded in other countries. The coincidences piled up, but science had no answers. Meteorologists spoke of Earth resonances, sound waves generated by ground movements. But the measurements didn't match. Acoustic engineers mentioned atmospheric interference, but couldn't reproduce anything similar in the laboratory. Silence remained, and it was in this silence that many began to seek answers outside of science. Religious leaders saw it as a sign of the times, the manifestation of the sound that precedes the coming of judgment. Scholars of the occult claimed that these noises mark planetary energy shifts, the beginning of a cycle of vibrational transformation. The curious thing is that, regardless of belief, people's reaction is almost always the same. First comes fear, then astonishment, and finally a strange feeling that something inside them awakened, as if that sound wasn't just heard, but felt on deeper levels, in places of the being that normally remain dormant. It's an experience that many describe as spiritual, even without knowing why. A sound that seems to penetrate the body, touch the invisible, and leave a mark. There are records of people who, after hearing the trumpets, radically changed their lives. Some decided to quit their jobs, move to another city, and seek a new purpose. Others reported recurring dreams of lights, portals, and voices calling their names. For many, these sounds represented a turning point in their lives. Interior journey, as if the universe had invited them to see what is beyond the routine, the rush, and the daily noise. Some planetary resonance researchers have attempted to compare the frequencies captured in the recordings with Earth's natural patterns. The results were disconcerting. On several occasions, the frequencies coincided with peaks in magnetic activity, solar storms, and even variations in the planet's electromagnetic fields. Coincidence or not, the moments when the planet appears to scream coincide with periods of great human instability, wars, crises, global changes. It's as if the Earth and humanity were vibrating together, reflecting the same cosmic tension. But there's another detail that intrigues spiritual researchers. These sounds don't just provoke fear, they also generate a sense of recognition, as if they were familiar, as if we'd heard them before, somewhere forgotten in our memory. This memory, from which we don't know where it comes, is what many call the echo of the soul, an ancestral call that transcends time and reminds us that we are part of something much greater. What if these sounds are in fact the meeting of science and prophecy? On one side, the vibrations and frequencies that physics tries to understand. On the other, the signs and warnings described in Scripture. Perhaps we are facing a phenomenon that unites both worlds, the rational and the spiritual, showing that the border between heaven and earth is thinner than we imagine. The metallic sound that many fear may not be the announcement of the end, but the prelude to a new beginning. It's impossible to watch these videos, hear these noises, and remain indifferent. There's a power in them that surpasses understanding, and perhaps that's precisely their intention: to provoke, to shake, to awaken. Because while the mind searches for explanations, the spirit recognizes the sound, and in that recognition, something awakens. Silent, profound, inevitable. If this topic resonated with you, write the word in the comments called. Because perhaps, deep down, that's what these trumpets are, a call for humanity to finally listen again. There's something intriguing about the fact that, even amid the apparent confusion of these sounds, many claim to sense a pattern, a kind of order hidden within the chaos. It's as if the universe speaks a language we can't yet decipher, but somehow we intuitively recognize the celestial trumpets, the metallic noises from the sky, the vibrations of deep space. These may all seem random at first glance, but what if they aren't? What if within these frequencies there is a hidden code, a message that transcends the sound itself? Physicist Nikola Tesla used to say, if you want to understand the universe, think of energy, frequency, and vibration. What he perhaps didn't imagine is that a century later, this phrase would become almost prophetic. Today, we know that reality is made of vibrational patterns. Every particle, every thought, every emotion carries a frequency, and just as a radio needs to be tuned to the right station to pick up a broadcast, perhaps the human mind needs a specific tuning to understand certain cosmic messages. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when we look at the frequencies recorded in recent years, we notice something that defies logic. In many cases, the sound waves exhibited almost mathematical repetitions, as if they were organized in binary codes. The same interval repeated itself, the same pauses, the same resonance pattern. Some sound engineers analyzing these recordings have stated that it would be impossible for such a coincidence to occur naturally so often. Others, more skeptical, claim it's simply electromagnetic interference. But the question remains: why does the sound of chaos seem to follow such a precise structure? There are those who believe that these frequencies carry spiritual information, just as radio waves carry invisible voices and music. The Bible speaks of the voice of many waters, a voice heard not with the ears, but with the Spirit. Perhaps the cosmic noise we perceive today is precisely that, a type of divine, non-verbal communication that speaks directly to consciousness. A sound that doesn't need to be translated because it is felt. Quantum sound researchers have already noticed that certain frequencies can trigger specific emotional reactions. Tones between 432 Hz and 528 Hz, for example, tend to generate feelings of calm, healing, and mental expansion. It's as if the body recognizes something familiar in these vibrations, an echo of its constituents. This reinforces the idea that sound isn't just travels through space, but also crosses the soul. It touches something that human language cannot reach, as if each frequency were a word of what we call the divine mystery. What if these global trumpets, these seemingly purposeless sounds, were conveying a message not to the ears, but to the human heart? Scripture says, "He who has ears to hear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches." Perhaps this has never been more literal than it is now. The problem is that we have learned to listen to the world, but we have forgotten how to hear what comes from above. The noise of modern life, the voices, the screens, the artificial noises, has drowned out the silence where sacred frequencies manifest. Some vibrational spirituality scholars believe there is a divine grammar hidden within sound waves. Each variation, each interval, carries information that can only be understood by those in a state of heightened perception. Just as light contains all colors, sound contains all truths. And what we call noise may actually be a language our senses are not yet capable of translating. This hypothesis leads us to a fascinating point. What if communication between the divine and the human had never ceased? What if God had always continued speaking, not with words, but with frequencies, and we simply lose the ability to understand what He says? The voice as of many waters mentioned in Revelation may be just that, a universal, all-encompassing sound, not limited to languages, but carrying a direct, vibrational meaning, capable of transcending the limits of the rational mind. There are curious accounts of people who claim to have heard these sounds and, soon after, experienced profound internal transformations, shifts in mindset, sudden insights, unexpected decisions, as if something within them had been realigned. It's as if the sound had activated a dormant memory, an inner calling that awakens when the body vibrates at the same frequency as its origin. These experiences, although difficult to prove, convey a powerful subjective truth. The universe speaks, and those who are willing to listen change. In several ancient traditions, sound is treated as the very instrument of creation in Hinduism. Om represents primordial vibration. In Kabbalah, creation begins with breath, the divine sound that gives form to matter. In Christianity, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word is sound before it is word. Everything begins and ends in vibration, and when man hears again, he reconnects with the source. Perhaps then, the code hidden in these frequencies lies not only in the trumpets or cosmic noises, but in ourselves. Perhaps we are part of this code, receivers and transmitters of a forgotten language. What we call faith, intuition, or inspiration may be merely a reflection of this silent communication, a constant dialogue between the human and the eternal. Sound in this context is not noise, it's revelation. And the more the world tries to explain the inexplicable, the more we realize that the mystery isn't out there, but here within, in the way we resonate with what we hear. Perhaps the right question isn't, what do these frequencies mean? But why do they touch us so deeply? If this idea resonated with you, write the word in the comments code. Because who knows, by recognizing that something in us responds to this sound, we are beginning, little by little, to decipher the language of the universe itself. For centuries, prophets gazed at the horizon and described visions that seemed impossible. They spoke of fire falling from the sky, of machines that would see and hear everything, of voices that would spread to the four corners of the earth. Many called them mad, others visionaries. But looking at today's world, it's hard not to wonder, were they seeing our time? Because what was once symbolic is now literal. What was mysterious is now technology. And what seemed distant is already here, before us, vibrating, speaking, observing. Prophecies have always spoken of signs from heaven, trumpets, echoes, voices that would call humanity to awakening. But what if these voices didn't just come from above? What if some of them were coming from within human creations themselves? Satellites that send continuous signals, networks that connect billions of minds, artificial intelligences that learn, to hear and speak. All of this sounds familiar when reading the ancient scriptures in a new light. It's as if humanity has learned to replicate the divine, and in the process had opened doors that he still doesn't fully understand. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because perhaps the real warning isn't about the end of the physical world, but about the fusion of two realms, the spiritual and the technological. We are entering an era where the invisible becomes visible and the intangible begins to be codified. Faith and science, which for centuries walked in opposite directions, now look at each other like mirrors. Spirituality has always said that everything is connected, and technology has created the proof, a global network that unites minds, voices, data, and emotions in real time. What we call the Internet may be the closest metaphor to what the ancients would have called collective consciousness. And here's the irony. The more we connect digitally, the more we seem to disconnect from what's essential. The sound of machines fills the silence that was once inhabited by the soul. Algorithms know what we feel, what we want, and even what we'll desire tomorrow. We're surrounded by artificial voices whispering in our ears, replacing intuition with suggestions, prayer with notifications. And perhaps this is the true sound of the end, not a roar from the heavens, but a constant hum of machines that never sleep. Think about it. The prophets spoke of a time when man would create idols that would speak and give orders, and the world would obey them. Today, we carry these idols in our pockets. They are small, luminous, and seemingly harmless, but they control our emotions, our decisions, our vision of reality. They are voices that shape collective thought, that transform beliefs into trends and faith into algorithms. Perhaps what John saw in his revelation was not merely symbolic. Perhaps it was a glimpse of the digital power that would emerge at the end of time when the human voice merged with the machine, and the sound of creation merged with the sound of invention. There's something paradoxical about all this. Because at the same time that technology brings us closer to understanding the mysteries of the universe, decoding the sound of the stars, exploring consciousness, translating the invisible into data, it also distances us from the spiritual essence that gives meaning to everything. We're hearing more, but listening less, seeing more, but understanding less. Seeking answers outside, when perhaps the true code lies within. The line between faith and science has never been so blurred. Mankind has learned to imitate creation, but has forgotten to ask what to do with this power. And perhaps that's why so many feel the world is in transition. It's as if we're in the midst of a great global resonance, where the sound of machines and the sound of the heavens are mixing, creating a new frequency, neither completely human nor completely divine. Some would call this evolution, others a fulfilled prophecy. But in both cases, there is a truth that cannot be ignored. The future the ancients saw is not coming. It has already begun. And the most impressive thing is that in this scenario, the role of the human being changes completely. From observer, they become co-creators. What was once a promise becomes an experience. The sound that was once celestial begins to be reproduced in laboratories, and what was once spiritual becomes measurable, digitizable, and reproducible. But there is a risk. When man tries to dominate what is sacred, without understanding its purpose, he repeats the same error described since Eden, the desire to be like God. And this may be the true final warning, not a sudden catastrophe, but a silent transformation, in which humanity, fascinated by its own creation, forgets the Creator. It is the moment when faith must reinvent itself to coexist with reason, and technology must recognize its own limits in the face of mystery. With each new advance, we seem to take another step toward what the prophets called the time of awakening. Today's trumpets are not just sounds from the heavens, but vibrations emanating from the machines, the cables, the servers, the intelligences we create. They herald a new era, and it is up to us to decide whether that era will be one of enlightenment or perdition. The end is not necessarily destruction. It may simply be their revelation, the discovery that the divine and the digital are about to become one voice. If this reflection made you think, write the word in the comments "wake up," because maybe that's the real purpose of all this. Not to fear the sound of the end, but to understand what it's trying to teach us. If the ancients really knew, then perhaps what we are hearing now is not just a distant sound from the sky or the hum of the machines we have created. Perhaps it is a call to reminder that something within us needs to awaken. Centuries ago, prophets spoke of a time when humanity would hear voices they could not explain, signs that would confound science and challenge faith. Today, we live in exactly that. A world in which the invisible begins to become audible, and the inaudible begins to be felt. What seemed like fantasy is blending with reality. And in the midst of this fusion, human beings must decide what they will listen to: the sound of fear or the sound of purpose. The curious thing is that the more we try to understand the universe, the more it throws back questions at us. Each scientific discovery opens a new spiritual abyss. Each technological advance seems to bring us closer to something greater, and at the same time forces us to face the hidden truth we've avoided for so long, that perhaps man hasn't created anything new, merely deciphered the fragments of a code that existed from the beginning. The sound of the end may not be destruction, but revelation. A revelation that everything vibrates, everything speaks, and what we call heaven may be closer than we imagine. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because perhaps the true meaning of this phenomenon lies not in the noise itself, but in the reaction it provokes. Fear, curiosity, faith, transformation. Each person who hears these sounds carries a unique experience, but in all of them, there is something in common: the feeling that the world is trying to say something. What if this something is a direct message to human consciousness, asking us to awaken before it's too late? Perhaps the final trumpet sounds not only in the heavens, but within us. Perhaps the judgment we so fear comes not from without, but from the reflection of who we have become. The line between the spiritual and the technological has never been so thin, and perhaps that is exactly where the prophecies are fulfilled, not as punishment, but as invitation, an invitation to remember what we were, understand what we have become, and choose what we can still be. If the universe truly speaks in frequencies, perhaps this is the moment we finally listen again. And I want to leave you with a sincere question. What do you think? Are we hearing the sound of prophecies being fulfilled, or just the echoes of our own creation? Write your word here in the comments. Call it if, like me, you feel that something inside us is being awakened. If you've made it this far, it's because something about this topic truly resonated with you. And that's precisely why this space exists. For us to think together, question what seems right, and see what usually goes unnoticed. If this video made you reflect in any way, please leave a like so this message can continue to reach more people who also seek to understand what is happening in the world and within themselves. Take advantage and subscribe to the channel. Here we will continue exploring these connections between faith, mystery, and knowledge, always with respect, curiosity, and depth. Each new episode offers a different perspective on themes that unite the spiritual and the real, the ancient and the future, and I want you to be part of this journey. Oh, and if you stayed until the end, comment below with the sentence, "I heard the call," just so I know you're among those who actually listen to every last sound of this conversation. There's a video right here that complements this topic and will help you see it all from a new perspective. Click through and stay with me there. The journey is just beginning.